Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jerry, and today I got my week 2 review. I'm going over every single game, what I learned from it, and this week there were some where I didn't really learn very much, so you're going to get a quicker video than last week. I can't call it a quick video because I like to yap. But to avoid that, like, comment, and subscribe. All of those are down below. And let's just get into this first one so we don't have to waste any more time. Dolphins-Bills. Tua's big injury. Obviously, that's the big talk of this game. Very disappointing, see him smack his head again. I would have never thought that that's how he would get another concussion or whatever that is. His head didn't really hit him very hard, and it hit a human rather than the ground, which apparently Damar Hamlin, you come back from the dead and you just end up with the strongest chest of all time. And have the unfortunate injury for Tua there. Hopefully he can come back. They end up signing Tyler Huntley, which I think is huge. I can't believe he was on the Ravens practice squad. He should have just always been the backup because he's the perfect backup for Lamar Jackson. Instead, the Dolphins get him. They couldn't get Tyreek Hill and Waddle the ball, and that proved to be a big issue. A-Chain had a good week, but you can't ride off of just A-Chain. You got to get your other star players the ball. Weren't able to do that. I think Tyler Huntley is going to be able to do that. And I thought the defense was very subpar. James Cook basically just dominated the whole game. And Josh Allen can use his legs too. He can throw it, and he can throw it to anybody on the football field. Now everybody thought, oh no, Diggs is gone. What is he going to do? He's just going to throw it to everybody. And it ends up kind of similar to, what Jordan Love has in the Packers offense or Malik Willis this week, where any given week, the quarterback could just go off to any of the receivers. In the Packers, it could be Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson, even, I think, what's that other guy? Dontavion Wicks. I'm forgetting somebody else, too. There's just so many talented wide receivers over there they're kind of all wide receiver 1 and all wide receiver, 3s, because they can do it all. But that's kind of what I've seen from the Bills, is you've got Keon Coleman, you've got Khalil Shakir, you've got Dawson Knox, you've got Dalton Kincaid, for probably not mentioning somebody else too, but even James Cook out of the backfield. Everybody can do that. And the defense, Statman. Wow, that's quite the typing. You know what? I remember now. I typed this one on my phone during the game, and I like to drink alcohol sometimes during the games. So I made a statement or made a statement. I just thought they made a statement. I say that because even before Tua's injury, they could not, the Dolphins couldn't do anything. I don't think Tua's injury is the reason that they lost this game. They were going to lose regardless, and it was just the very depressing, disappointing icing on the cake that, he has the injury there. So, but the Bills dominate, and they are the Bills again. Cowboys, Saints. I just put what is going on, because the Cowboys I thought, they were one of the higher scoring teams week 1, and I'm okay, well, they're going to go against the highest scoring team in the Saints. I think that the Cowboys defense is better than the Saints. Then I thought naturally they'd win. I thought they'd win 28-20. I thought it was going to be, decently high scoring. I didn't think the Saints were just going to dominate the Cowboys the whole time. Derek Carr didn't even throw. I think he didn't even throw 15 passes. But Alvin Kamara had the game, not even of his lifetime, because obviously he had the Christmas game where he got 6 touchdowns, but he got 4 touchdowns and just dominated. There's not much to talk about in this game because I don't think you should overreact to the Cowboys' loss. I don't think you should overreact to the Saints getting a win. I think you should react to it, though, because the Saints are looking like a top team in the NFL, which is insane, because last year I thought Saints are easily winning their division, and I think they can make a playoff run. And they completely surprised me by not even making the playoffs and being a horrible team. They didn't really change much to get better, and now they're one of the best teams in the league. So I don't know what's going on. Lions, Buccaneers, this is another one. This is one we can actually talk about, though. The Lions just made too many mistakes, specifically Jared Goff. I've commented in the past about how I love Jared Goff's probably one of the best in the league at, he can throw an interception and not give a shit about it. He'll come out and he'll just do great on the next drive, doesn't even faze him. I think Matt Stafford, oddly enough, the famous trade between the two of them, I think he's another guy where if he throws a pick, he's going to fucking use that as fuel to get out there and be the best damn quarterback ever. I think that can hurt him Jared Goff, maybe in this case, throws 2 interceptions, ends up being pretty much the reason that they lose the game. I also put Hutch seems like the only defender because when you look at the names of the players on the defense, you've got Baker Mayfield juking out the defense, and their defense does look pretty bad. Like I liked what I saw from Brian Branch last year, and I was hoping Jack Campbell, could be a nice piece there, but it's really like, oh, Aiden Hutchinson got 4.5 sacks and 4 tackles for a loss, and the rest of the defense did what? They did hold the Buccaneers to only I think they were at 215 yards total, which is good, but also they lost, and they didn't. The Buccaneers didn't really have to do a lot. The Lions did shut down Rachaad White, which I thought was a good movie. Unfortunately, ends up getting injured, and we'll see. So the Rachaad White injury, that obviously affected this game, although Rachaad White, again, was not doing very good. I think he had 10 carries for 18 yards and 1 reception. But Bucky Irving is not Rachaad White. I can tell you that for sure. And I think that is something to worry about. I think he's questionable right now. Rachaad White, but I think that's going to be a key piece. Buccaneers also showed in this game that they don't need Mike Evans to be the number one. They can throw him the ball 3 times, and Chris Godwin can get 10 for 130 or whatever it was and just go off. So that was exciting to see Cone Godwin. Cone Godwin, if you watch BDGE, I recommend that you do if you don't, but they call him Cone Godwin because he's a cone. He just kind of sits there and does nothing. But not in this game. He's kind of the reason that they won on offense. With Baker. And so Baker for MVP, he's got to be in the conversation, right? I think he's got the most touchdowns in the league right now. And he's just throwing the football very well. He's one of the top passers in the league right now. I hate to say it, and it's a horrible thing to say. We're going to talk about some other potential MVPs that don't make any sense. But that's how it is. Lastly, Lions, they'll be back. They're going to be better. I think Dan Campbell is hopefully, maybe the Applebee's commercials are having an effect on him, but I think Dan Campbell will be back along with the Detroit Lions. And then are the Buccaneers a top 5 team? I think they could be. I hate to say it because we're talking about the Buccaneers and the Saints being top 5 teams. When is that? How? The Falcons too? The Falcons just beat the Eagles? What is that division? The Panthers are obviously shit, but the rest of the division, how are they doing so well? That's a great question that I don't have the answers to. Buccaneers 20, Lions 16. Jaguars, Browns is another. This is the Jaguars might stink. Trevor Lawrence was 14 for 30 in this game. That's just pitiful. Deshaun Watson stinks too, but he just played better. It was 18-13. There wasn't really much that I learned from this game. I was watching Red Zone, and evidently there wasn't much of anything entertaining going on in this game. So I'm going to skip over this game. Sorry, Jaguars and Browns fans, but we're skipping. Wow. Now this is unbelievable. So the best tackle duo, we'll just start off with my list here. The best tackle duo in the NFL is Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw of the Minnesota Vikings. The 49ers have a great pass rush, and I'll go a little bit deeper in this because I think that this is a very important thing because I think we're almost, that's fun. I think we're in a situation where the Bears, the Bears they have a great defense so far this year. They're forcing turnovers, not necessarily doing the best in the yards category, but the Vikings defense, similar situation where their defense is incredible and they're doing just all around great at holding. I mean, obviously it's just the 49ers so far. Hold the Giants to 6, which I know you could say isn't very impressive either, but it's really just Brian Flores' scheme. They don't have any big superstars on the defense in Minnesota, and they're just playing great to the point where you have Brock Purdy say, that scheme is crazy to Brian Flores. And Brian Flores just kind of smiled and laughed because he knows that he has a crazy good scheme. And I just think it's unbelievable. So bringing back to why I brought up the Bears, Vikings have a great defense. They also have great tackles. They have a great offensive line in general. I think you could look towards the interior, maybe the guards, and be like, okay, well, it's not the best there, but as a whole, I think they've probably could make their case for one of the better O-lines. Now, what does that lead to? Well, you have one big star receiver in Justin Jefferson. And you have a decent run game. It's been good so far this year. But because you have such a great offensive line, you end up having a pretty good run game. The quarterback doesn't have to be worried about being pressured every time. And you have somebody like Sam Darnold who's able to have success. And I think there could be, this is like it's not a conspiracy theory, I guess, but it's my big idea that could be an interesting route to take as far as the NFL goes. Put a lot of money on your defense, invest in 2 tackles, a wide receiver, and a running back. And then any quarterback that is just okay, Sam Darnold, for instance, should be able to pass the ball because your tackles and hopefully the rest of the offensive line is good enough to where it can kind of contain him. Your run game naturally is going to be good if you have a good running back and you have a good offensive line. And if you have one big receiver, that's going to open up opportunities for even mediocre other receivers. And I don't know, that just seems like it could be a format for success. Maybe I'm reading way too far. Yeah, I am reading way too far into that with the Vikings. But just looking at that from the big picture, outside looking in, it looks phenomenal. Now, the box score and how did they lose for the 49ers is kind of all one thing. Debo Samuel, so if I told you Debo Samuel had 100, Jordan Mason had 100, Brock Purdy had 300, who would you think won the game if the turnover situation is even? Darnold had a pick, Purdy had a pick. Who would you think would win? I would think that the 49ers would win. Well, what else happened? That crazy scheme that the Vikings have got to Brock Purdy 6 times. So he was clearly having trouble reading the field, and the pass rush was clearly getting back there. And I think that's another thing that maybe with my evil plan, my diabolical great plan that I just came up with, for that to work, you'd probably have to have like a legendary, maybe not legendary, big word, but like a really good defensive coordinator, like somebody like Brian Flores, to be able to execute something like that. Thought that was interesting. Rambled on a little bit too much. We were wrong about this pick. The Vikings end up winning 23-17. You saw a glimpse of this. And we're moving on. So the Ravens and the Raiders. No, so the Panthers suck. I'm interested. I just want it real quick. I think Andy Dalton could revive the team a little bit. I also think, I heard this on the Pat McAfee show, Tone Diggs, shout out AP Tone Diggs. He said that he thinks that the Panthers might be doing a little Mason Rudolph situation where everybody in Pittsburgh was going for Rudolph's head. They're like, get him the fuck out of here. They wanted him out. And then they saw that Kenny Pickett was so bad. And they're like, oh boy, I don't know if we want Mason Rudolph out of here. I don't know. I think we want Mason Rudolph back. And they kind of learned to love him. Now he's gone with the Titans. Now, obviously, Justin Fields and Russell Wilson are working, but it left on a good note, good picture in the Steelers' mind. He thinks that the Panthers might be doing something like that, where like, hey, it's not all Bryce Young's fault. Maybe the offense just sucks. Now, that could backfire. If Andy Dalton, the red rifle, goes off and just has a great game, there's going to be some problems for Bryce Young moving forward, and he might not be in the NFL in a year or two. But yeah, the Panthers suck. We're going to see if Andy Dalton, we're probably going to see a lot of quick passes, a lot of quick design stuff, and Andy Dalton's going to execute it. He's going to try to get the ball to Thielen. He's going to try to get the ball to Leggett, and we'll maybe be able to see some of these running backs. I think the struggle there is the offensive line is just hot dog shit, so it's going to be tough for the running backs to have success regardless. Ravens Raiders. I didn't really know what to say about the Ravens because like you watch the game and you think they should have won. It was really just came down to my last comment there. The defense needs to step it up. They just gave up at the end. They didn't finish the game. They just let Gardner Minshew just roll right down the field, no problems, and win the game. The Raiders, they couldn't run the ball. They had like 34 rushing yards total. They couldn't stop the run either. Going to be very difficult all year to stop Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson in the same backfield, but they won. And the reason we're kind of doing an odd circle here, but what's to come for the Ravens is because in both weeks, box score wise and like eye test, they've looked pretty good, but they've just flopped at the end. And you thought, okay, if you watched my power rankings video, going to be some massive changes for one. So watch that if you haven't. Well, you haven't. There's no chance you could watch it already because it's going to come out tomorrow. But massive changes there. I put the Ravens. I had them at 2 in my power rankings last week because I went, okay, you know what? They lost to the Chiefs. I have the Chiefs as the best team. I understand it. Ravens look like a great football team. They're going to be tough. And then they lose to the Raiders. So as you can expect, they're going to fly down. But yeah, this was very interesting. And I don't actually know what's to come for the Ravens because if every week they're going to look good and look like a winning football team and lose, that sounds more like them in the playoffs rather than in the regular season. Now, maybe they're doing a flip-flop and they're going to lose stupid games in the regular season and then just win in the playoffs. Maybe that's their plan, a little reverse psychology from John Harbaugh there. But I don't know what they're going to do. Ravens end up losing 23-26, miracle fashion of -8.5 to win that game. And I lost too on the bets, as you'll see my picks were not good. Patriots and the Seahawks. Patriots have been way better than I expected. And I'm not really surprised as to how either. It's just their offensive line is decent. Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson are running all over the place. And Jacoby Brissett could probably throw for under 150 yards in every game this year. And it seems like every game they'd be in it because as long as their defense does okay and they run the ball okay and Jacoby Brissett doesn't turn the ball over, it just seems like they're somehow going to be in it. I think that the defense needs to play better, though. Jacoby Brissett was 15 for 27, and then Hunter Henry had 12 targets, which I know I just said that the defense has to play better. That doesn't really connect to that at all. But Hunter Henry had almost as many targets as Jacoby Brissett had completions, so I thought that was interesting. You'd think that might be a trend that the Seahawks would catch on to. Hey, maybe we should cover this guy. He likes to throw to him. Bad problem there. But I also said for the Seahawks, they did enough because they said, we'll let you run the ball. We'll let you throw it to Hunter Henry. Beat us. And they weren't able to do it. Geno goes 33 for 44, ends up having the most passing yards of the week, 327. And the reason I also say the defense has to play better for the Patriots is because how they're playing football. If that's how they're going to play, where they're just going to run the shit out of the football, run the air out of the football is probably a more respectful way to put that. But they're going to run the air out of the football and they're going to throw quick short passes to their tight end. I think they had like one completion over 20 yards too, the Patriots did. So if they're going to do that, the defense is going to have to hold the other team and they're going to have to play chess, not checkers, and try to deal with time management if they're going to try to win games that way. And then on the Seahawks, TK and JSN show. JSN leads the league in receptions this week with 12. Kenneth Walker needs to come back, though, because Zach Charbonnet was not able to do anything this game, and I think it showed how good of a running back Kenneth Walker is. So hopefully he can come back soon. But either way, Seahawks take down the Patriots 23-20. I'm wrong on the spread. It was a +3.5 spread, so we're wrong there. But Packers-Colts, I was right on this one. Kind of accidentally backwards right, because I forgot when I made the graphic that Jordan Love was injured. So Malik Willis was starting, and I picked the Packers to win. Also predicted pretty close on the score. I predicted 21-17, 16-10. The Packers, we just talked about running the shit out of the ball or running the air out of the ball. The Packers did that. 32 carries, 151 yards for Josh Jacobs. And the Packers really scare me, which as a Bears fan, I really hate to say, because when you have a game where Malik Willis can just throw 12 for 14, like 100-something yards, and Josh Jacobs can just run everywhere on the football field, and they can just still win the game. The defense holds the Colts to 10 points, and they win. Gosh, it just seems like they could beat any team if you can put Malik Willis in, somehow get him to throw, what was that, 90% completion, or what is it, like 85% completion percentage, and not really throw the ball far. There wasn't really anything special. The Colts knew. The Colts should have known, at least, that they were just going to run the ball, and they still couldn't plan for it. Maybe they didn't plan for it, and that's why I put the defense got exposed, because in my mind, they had to know. They had to know, oh, Malik Willis, oh, he's fast, okay, and he's not good at throwing the football. No, he's not good at throwing, okay, so that probably would mean there's going to be a lot of running. We should plan. Let's plan for that. Let's plan, guys, for running. And they just ran all over them. They said, okay, we're just going to run all over you. and I don't know how they couldn't stop it. And if you heard me last week about AR-15, I think that he needs time. And everybody was talking about it. Well, how are you so low on the Colts? Because they only lost by 2 to the Texans. I'm like, well, let's see. Well, let's look at the big plays and let's look at the numbers. Anthony Richardson last week, he had over 200 yards passing. Well, he had a 64-yard completion, or 61 and a 50. It added to 110 yards on 2 plays, 2 touchdowns, 2 plays, 100 yards in the air. And they were kind of, the one bomb was an absolute beautiful pass, might be the greatest pass of the year. I think it was kind of lucky. I think he just fully aired it out. Maybe he knows his limit and he threw it and on time and he got it. The other play to I think Alec Pierce was one and Ashton Doolin was the other one. And Doolin, another good play too. And you have to include those plays because they count, but that accounted for 100 yards. Anthony Richardson would have had less yards last week than Caleb Williams without those completions. He also wouldn't have had a touchdown. He gets exposed this week when he throws 3 interceptions and doesn't have any of those big plays. And all of a sudden, the offense only scores 10 points. Oh my goodness, I apologize. Let's get back into this here. Colts might stink. The defense got exposed, and I would worry if I was the Colts, because you don't really want Anthony Richardson to need time, because he was injured all last year. You'd think, okay, that'd be a good time to learn more of the fundamentals, and those aren't looking good right now. So we'll see what happens, but the Packers win 16-10. Titans Jets. Will Levis does it again. That's all to say about the Titans, because Coach Brian Callahan is not happy. He's very unhappy with Will Levis, basically losing the game for his team 2 weeks in a row. And then they barely won, the Jets did. Rodgers' passing choice was certainly something as well. Rodgers had 12 targets to wide receivers, and he had 12 targets to running backs. Now, I always look at the box score and I look at all the numbers. I don't like to look too far into that, because I think eye test is very important in like how the actual game goes. But I also think it's interesting to look at that from a stat perspective, just to see what's happening. And Aaron Rodgers, I think there was a stat that he hasn't thrown for 300 yards since like 2021 or something, which obviously he was out for a whole year, but that's still 2 full seasons that he didn't throw for 300 yards. And this game he only throws for like 170, 178, I think it was. And so it's interesting. And the Jets as a whole, with how close this game was to the Titans, the Bears, who looked like a mess and have looked like a mess on offense, they beat the Titans 24-17. So the Jets, who we have Garrett Wilson and Mike Williams and Alan Lazard and Breece Hall and Braylon Allen and all these players, and Robert Sala's our defense, and they only won 24-17. So it looks like it's going to take some more time, but they just don't look like a contender right now. And Rodgers' whole reason for being there is to get the Jets a Super Bowl. Doesn't look like it right now, but they do get the win 24-17. Commanders Giants. This is just a quick one. Danny Dimes to Malik Neighbors was incredible. 10 receptions for Malik Neighbors. I think he had 18 targets, though. He had like 80% of the targets or something ridiculous. And I think the Giants are getting there. They at least showed promise. Daniel Jones didn't really make any like super massive mistakes, and they didn't look like they weren't able to produce offense at the very least. Their kicker was just gone, so they couldn't hit extra points, and the Commanders were able to win with 7 field goals, which is incredible. 1 field goal of which was farther than an extra point. They had a 47-yarder, and the rest were like under 40, which is crazy to me that the Giants had the most bend, but don't break defense, where they get in the red zone every time and then just didn't score. So that was weird to me, but field goals count. Field goals matter, and you're going to see at the end of this video. Skip if you want. You've probably been skipping through. Anyway, I encourage you to skip. If there's a certain team you wanted to see me talk about, skip to that point. That's perfectly fine by me. I won't be mad at you. Also, you can skip to the end, where I'm going to talk about some field goal stats, which is kind of crazy this early in the season. But Brian Robinson went off. I've I'm kind of excited for Brian Robinson, and honestly kind of excited for the Commanders, which is a weird thing to say. I just like what's going on. Dan Quinn's a head coach again. Cliff Kingsbury seemingly has a good thing going on with Jaden Daniels, and I think Brian Robinson's doing well. And it's just an interesting team. The Commanders have been through a lot in the past few years between the name changes and the owner guy. I can't think of his name right now. What is it, Schneider or whatever? And then the Sean Taylor statue, and just everything's been going wrong. So nice to see something positive. Granted, it's beating the Giants by 3 points, so I don't want you to overreact to that either. But there's positives on their offense, which I think is a good thing. Cardinals Rams. Welcome to the NFL, Marvin Harrison Jr. Incredible. Absolutely great. 4 receptions, 130-something yards, 2 touchdowns. Great job. I'm sorry about that. I don't know. Something's going on with my voice right now. It's not great. Just coughed up a lung and got some water. We're going to keep going. Kyler looks like a new boy. That was a big thing for me. Perfect passer rating is incredible. Great game for him. James Conner, 122 yards on the ground. Big game for him. And I also think the defense got off easy because of all the injuries on the Rams offense. All around, their offensive line completely battered. You lose Puka Nacua. And I don't know what they're going to do. I think it's going to be very tough. The defense wasn't able to contain Marvin Conner. You're missing Aaron Donald. You got Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. But I don't know what their plan's going to be for this year because Matt Stafford's time's running out. And I don't know what they're going to do. I really don't know. So it's going to be a tough one moving forward for them. The Chiefs, we'll just go over the big story here. Did they get bailed out? I think they did, because you look at that play with the pass interference. That was a real penalty. That should have been called. I think that was a good call. What was going around was on the same play, massive holding problem on the Chiefs there. So that should have been called too, and that would have been a game changer right there. Chiefs probably don't win. The stat comes out where there's been like 17 interceptions called back from Mahomes or whatever. I think it's bad. I think people are kind of blowing it out of proportion because he's a big star in the NFL. But I do think he is, more than anybody, making those like big throws downfield because he knows people play aggressive in a time crunch. And, pressure's on, adrenaline's flowing, and they're going to jump up. And if they jump too early, or if they swat too early, or if they, out of just natural human instinct, grab somebody's arm or grab a piece of their clothing, it's all a penalty. And it's kind of catered to the offense. And I honestly think he's just taking advantage of that more than other quarterbacks in the NFL. And you can hate it, but that's what's happening. I also think Mahomes needs to play better. He's turning the ball over. He's not really making smart plays. There was a couple times where, I don't know, I just saw him like run out of bounds at the line of scrimmage, and it's just a weird thing. Normally, at least tries to get the ball downfield or tries to throw it. Maybe he's trying to avoid an interception, but that seemed odd. And where's Travis Kelce? He's not getting targeted at all. They're not really using him. So that was interesting. I think the Bengals are missing Joe Mixon big time. Zach Moss and Chase Brown are not making up for that. They have no run game. And I think they probably should have won this game just because of the penalty issue. And I'll grant the Bengals this one. And like I said, I was kind of lightly, I don't want to say I'm defending the Chiefs. I just think that the rest of the like NFL fans are not understanding. They just want to buy into like, yeah, we hate the Chiefs and they're cheaters. But everybody did that with the Patriots too. And I know there is some that are definitely egregious and it happens, but it happens for every team. It just gets highlighted more because it's the Chiefs. But in this one, I do think the Bengals should have won. Kind of got robbed there. But the Chiefs go on to win it 26-25. I was way off with my prediction. I thought 21-13. I thought the Chiefs would win by a little bit more, but the Bengals keep it close. Broncos Steelers. I just think very careless on offense. Bo Nix doesn't really seem to care about what he does with the ball, which is interesting. Threw like 45 touchdowns and 4 interceptions or whatever his last year at Oregon. And Now he's just throwing all the interceptions and turning the ball over and throwing the ball anywhere it shouldn't be thrown. I do like that he's being aggressive, and he does still throw a lot of passes on time, but it seems like he's going to need some time in the NFL to develop because, and he's old too, which is an interesting thought. Not really an interesting thought. That's just the age of the human, but yeah, I think Bo Nix, he's gonna need some time. I think Javonte Williams is still being very underwhelming, and I like that they're using Jaleel McLaughlin more, although I don't think he's great either. And then the Broncos just had a lot of bad penalties, and honestly, a big problem in this game was both of the penalties on the team. You see, I put that for both. I remember putting that in the game because I think there was a drive where it was like every play there was a penalty of some sort, false start, holding, offsides, illegal formation, you name it. They had a penalty for it. So that was tough there. I think the Steelers, I put top five defense just because they seem to have a really good defense. Haven't really played the greatest teams yet. You play the Falcons and the Broncos, so I don't know if you can really buy too much into that. But I just think Arthur Smith is an absolute genius for how he's using Justin Fields in that Steelers offense. What was Justin Fields really bad at in Chicago? Throwing to wide receivers or anybody running laterally across the middle. So what is he doing? He's doing a lot of quick passes to the sideline because he knows Justin can throw those. He's throwing in some deep routes. He's allowing Justin to run it and running the ball a lot. Granted, offensive line, still not great, but definitely better than Chicago. But they're running the ball well, running the ball to set up the pass. They're throwing routes and putting in plays that cater to Justin Fields and how he does. And I think it's working out really well, and I think it's why he's still the starting quarterback, and I'm interested to see what they do moving forward. But the Steelers take down the Broncos. We finally get one right here at 13-6. But I hope Justin Fields stays in. As a Bears fan, it was sad to see him go. I knew it was ready for him to go, even if I'm still a fan of him. It was just kind of at our point with our team, it wasn't going to be the move anymore. And with the first overall pick, you can't keep that guy around. So happy to see that Justin Fields, although if you look at the numbers, he has like 5 more passing yards than Caleb Williams. He just doesn't have the 2 interceptions, and he has 1 touchdown. But stats really aren't that impressive for Justin Fields, but he's doing what he needs to in the offense to win the game, and I appreciate that, and I hope he wins many more games. Next, we have the Texans and the Bears. DeMeco Ryans was perfect. Stroud did enough. The run game disappeared, though. Now, granted, Joe Mixon did come out of the game, but it was also before Joe Mixon was out that their run game did not look good against the Bears, which I was excited about because, in the first game, I was kind of worried about how bad the Bears' run defense was against Tony Pollard. So that really was kind of pissing me off, and I was like, oh no, the Texans are going to run all over us. Luckily, they didn't. That's probably why they only scored 19 points. But the defense, obviously, they continue to impress. Obviously, the Texans were able to get down the field. I think any of the defense's problems, it probably comes because of how often they're on the field, because the offense is so bad that they go 3 and out a bunch of the times. Now, they had a few more drives where they were actually able to make it down the field a little bit, and that's part of the reason they have 13 points. But I think the scheme was horrible. I think if you want to talk about the Bears' biggest problems in this game, I would go first is probably the offensive line, specifically Coleman Shelton at center, who I liked the signing at first because I was like, cool. Center's very important at implementing the offense, calling out blocking, assignments as well as coverages sometimes. And he knows Shane Waldron's offense. Cool, we'll plug him in. Then, Nate Davis was supposed to be a great run blocker from Tennessee. Maybe helped a little bit too much by who was around him in Tennessee. And obviously Derrick Henry is pretty good too. And then, you've got Tevin Jenkins, who had a couple misses in this game, but I think overall still had a decent game. He just had 2 or 3 plays where he just either got mauled or left looking stupid. And I thought the tackles did okay. Again, each of the tackles had some problems, but it was mainly because the Texans rushed. I think the graphic said 41% of the time in that game. So they made it very difficult. And I thought that would have been a very expected thing. I think all year you should expect defenses to blitz at a high rate, because putting a rookie quarterback who has historically held the ball for a long time, putting him under pressure quickly is a good way to make him nervous and get him to throw the ball quickly and make stupid decisions. And oh, what do you know? He did throw the ball quicker. He had one of the fastest time to throws of the week at 2.59 seconds, which I think is huge to see from Caleb Williams, because you never saw that from Justin Fields. The only thing I'm worried about is the reason that a lot of the pass times was quick was because all the screen passes, including a couple screen passes to Gerald Everett, which those need to be removed from the playbook forever. We have DJ Moore. We have DeAndre Swift, who I hate and don't think is a good football player, but I think he's a better runner than Gerald Everett. And we have, I think Rome Odunze would be a good runner that's better than better runner than Gerald Everett. Why are we doing that? So I think Shane Waldron, I don't want to say we should get worried about Shane Waldron yet. I always thought it was a weird pairing because Caleb historically doesn't throw to his tight end very much, and Shane Waldron ran the highest two tight end sets of any offensive coordinator last year. That worries me a bit too, but we'll see what happens with the Texans and the Bears. And then finally, we make it to Monday night. Eagles-Falcons, what a game. Kirko Chains. I didn't put Kirko. I guess I just put Kirk. Kirko Chains, though, kind of goes off at the end of the game. Big drive to win it. Very exciting. Money with 2 O's. Darnell Mooney has a big breakout game. Finally, another player I'm a big fan of, in Chicago, had a really great year. 1,000-yard receiving year. With the Bears. He actually had 1,000 yards with the Bears, if you can believe that. And he was a good receiver for us. He just kind of got lost in the offense, and Justin Fields stopped seeing him. And he got seen today by Kirk Cousins and had a great game. Had one opportunity at the end where he probably should have just stepped out of bounds on their last drive, and he fell down inbounds, which seemed odd. Maybe that was what they wanted, but that was weird. And I put as expected because A.J. Brown was out, and did we expect the Falcons to, I don't know. It just seemed like it made sense that the Eagles were going to screw that up. I don't know. I don't really have a good reason why I thought the Eagles were going to screw that up, but it seemed to me like they scored a little bit too early, and, when it all happened, and their defense just got too soft. So I think, I do think that the defense is still going to be a problem to worry about. Tush Push was back, though, in this game, executed that very well. I also think the Eagles had a big problem they didn't get any pressure on Kirk Cousins. He was basically able to do what Kirk Cousins does and sit back and throw the ball. So I find that to be a big problem that they're going to have to work out. The Eagles, with, getting pressure on the quarterback. Because that's going to be a good way against any quarterback to get them to make mistakes. Kirk Cousins didn't make many mistakes in this game, and that was a big part of the reason why they won. 22-21, Falcons over the Eagles. Going to week 2 leaders. Just so I can read this quick before you read it, look at those fun facts. There's been more field goals than offensive touchdowns this season. It's 141-129. Justin Tucker is 1 for 7 since last season on 50-yard field goals. That's crazy. Also, another stat, there's been 37 so far this season, over 50, I think. And there's only been 2 misses. Who are those? They're both Justin Tucker. NFL teams are averaging 120 rushing yards per game. This is the highest average through 2 weeks in 41 years. The last time the 49ers won in Minnesota was 1992. That's incredible. Joe Montana, I believe, was the quarterback then. Maybe it might have been Steve Young. It was not, Jeff Garcia or Colin Kaepernick or any of those guys, though. 1992 last time they won is crazy. Kymie Fairbairn is the first kicker in NFL history to make 5+ 50-yard field goals in 2 games. He did it in 6 quarters only, which is incredible. And then we have most completions and pass attempts. Brock Purdy, you got Geno over there. Kyler Murray with a perfect passer rating. Great week for him. Hutch with a 4.5 sack, 5 tackle for loss game. We talked about that. And then the rest were just pretty average. 151 rushing yards on 32 carries, pretty good. for Josh Jacobs. Honorable mention, we have Antonio Gibson had like 8 yards per carry. We had, J.K. Dobbins honorable mention last week. And fun fact with him, he's the first Charger to have back-to-back 130-yard rushing games since LT. So that's a fun one. Most offensive yards was the Cardinals, was 489, went absolutely off against the Rams. And then the least yards allowed was very expected, only 159 to the Panthers there. So let me know what you think down below. I think that I need a glass of water because I've had to cut this video like 6 times because my lungs and I'm just coughing and dying. So I'm going to try to figure that out. And toodaloo, you guys have a great day.